Table Talk. I am your host, Stan Deatherage. My colleague and good friend down east, Dave Hudson, is my co-host.
Morning.
He's going to be running the show every little bit of the way. And today we're blessed to have this fine gentleman right here, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council Member, Nicholas Fritz. Nice to have you here today.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for coming.
I'm looking forward to chatting with you guys, man. This is going to be great.
Thanks. And tell me what it's been like being on City Council.
Man, City Council's, it's a funny gig, right? Because you get in there all charged up to get stuff done, and then you have to, government's like a square wheel. You got to figure out all those stupid little things to get stuff done. But I've been impressed so far at the lack of willingness to try to actually get things done. Government's an ongoing concern, right? The bureaucracy exists. And the bureaucracy is what's happening every day. And it is totally comfortable to never change, to keep perpetuating whatever's been going on for a while. Government's always been equated as a big ship in the sea. It's very difficult to change direction. 100%.
Well, I'd like to say one thing.
Yep.
And you're talking about how difficult it is to get something done, square wheel effect. I understand that. I've been behind that wheel quite a bit over the last 25 years. I've been in the minority the whole time I've been a county commissioner, even though lately we've had more Republicans than the Democrats have had, but we hadn't had the right Republicans on our board. It's somewhat legend we haven't had the right Republicans on our board. But you have something I don't have, and I'm working towards that. I would love to have a conservative majority on the Board of County Commissioners. I'd love to lead those guys along with Hood Richardson, and we do all the right things to shrink government in this county. Now, you are blessed, and I mean blessed, to have two fine fellas, Joe Davis and Max Peralt, on the board with you, Nick. And you guys are working as a team so far. That's a wonderful thing. And to think it was done in Washington, where these folks in Washington generally don't vote as conservative as folks do in other areas, but I'm hopeful that people are becoming more conservative because they got the bite of what it feels like when progressive cities get really high taxes.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So Washington, I think, has been asleep at the switch as a community, myself included. I think stuff happens. Washington's a sleepy little community. We just hadn't paid attention to what's going on with the government. And then, last year, they did us the great service, man. They raised property taxes by 28% and woke us all up to start looking.
It woke me up.
What the heck is going on inside the city of Washington? And when you start looking, it's nuts, man. Since 2020, the amount of money they kept in the bank got so low they couldn't even afford to do small projects like the splash pad they built out there. We asked recently, why did you guys get a $500,000 loan for this project? I mean, $500,000 in the government world is a small amount of money. Like, why would you get a loan for a splash pad? They said the amount of money that they had in the bank got so low that if they went below that number, they would have been inviting state auditors to start taking a look at what they had going on. So they said, we're going to get debt to do these projects.
Generally, that's around 8 to 10% of the fund balance. Fund balance. That's when the fund balance becomes 8 to 10% of the general fund.
And I think they had got down to $3 or $4 million in the bank, and that number was just too low. So they got the debt.
And the county has about 28, 30.
The debt that they had, and I mean, they piled it on. They built a police station, built a fire station. They did an AMI project, a lot of infrastructure projects, interesting stuff that's probably you would want to do, but because they've been spending so much money, man, the debt went from about $4 million in 2021. At the end of this year, when that audit comes out, it's probably going to be about $26 million in debt that the city of Washington.
That's a lot to incur.
That's a tremendous amount to incur. That's over 100% of a year's worth of tax revenue. But also a blessing for me, Max, and Joe, Max, and I, because now for the first time we're a government that's going to get in there and we recognize that the city progresses not by how much the government does, but by how much the community does. Mm-hmm. So most people want to get in and build a splash pad or build a sidewalk or do some project downtown. They want to show our government's doing something. We are not that crowd of people. We're the conservatives. We want to get in there and say, and we're going to get in there in this February meeting, we're not going to approve a budget that doesn't repeal that tax rate. If we're going to reduce the property tax by 28%, and we're not going to approve a budget that doesn't have that. Now
That's going to mean a lot of cutting.
There's a lot of cutting. Well, you know, I think in our world, liberty and government expenditure go hand in hand, right? If you
one takes away from the other.
If you want more liberty, you got to get rid of the government expenditure.
The government cannot give back to you what it hasn't already taken. I think that's the truism that I live by as an elected official. And a lot of promises are made to this person, this group, and that group. And those promises cost a lot of money. They might buy you political largesse, and maybe folks will vote for you or help you out on some personal project you got going along that nobody else knows about. It's kind of corrupt, but yeah, you're using your gravitas to win in the community. And that's really not a good thing. I've seen people do it, and it always ends up costing the taxpayer more money.
Well, it has, you know, the theory of government in Washington for 7 years, the city of Washington has not had a population increase since 1960. In 1960, we hit the peak population of 9,900 people, and we have not hit that number since then. Now, the number of people employed on the government payroll has gone up. And the amount of money that we're trying to get out of the crowd of the same 9,900 people to do these projects has gone up. But everything the government does, all the downtown projects, any splash pad, any of that stuff, we're just taking money out of one neighbor's pocket and sticking it in another.
Same way in the county. We've gone from about 290 employees to about 430 to 440 employees, and Beaufort County's population has not shown an increase. But having said that, I've looked at some various factors. I mentioned this before on the show, but we had a really good election when Trump ran, and I think that it was about a 78-80% turnout. Roughly 28 to 29,000 people voted in Beaufort County in that election. I think that's the number, and that's a lot of people voting.
Yeah.
That tells me there's probably more population than we realize, not only in Beaufort County, but maybe in Washington as well. Some people didn't participate in the census, and a lot of folks were illegals, and they didn't want to participate. They could have, but they didn't for whatever reason. They're encouraged to participate in states like California, Minnesota, Oregon, Washington, New Mexico, Delaware.
Well, you know, you mentioned that, and that's one of the things that Joe Max and I we spent a lot of time brainstorming. How can we, as the city council, actually help the city of Washington if we're going to tie our hands and say that the city government isn't going to spend more money? As a matter of fact, the city government's going to spend less money. So what can a city council do? And so some of the things that we're going to do, we're meeting with a top tier private school. And you and I talked a little bit about these guys. This is a school where the kids, they actually have a tuition, but the state of North Carolina will allow anybody a voucher to go to this school. So this school keeps their tuition below that voucher amount. So basically it's free to any resident who has a kid who wants to go here. And this school teaches kids Latin, teaches kids Greek. The people coming out of this school are going to be going to colleges to become doctors and lawyers. And I have some family who go to this private school in Clayton and in Raleigh, and it's just such a cut above the education that we typically are run across.
Do you have an idea of where you want to look at yet?
Well, we're meeting with the fellow who owns the school this week, and we're going to see what he says. We want him to know.
Were you talking about public schools?
This is a private school.
I mean, but one of our public schools. We got public schools
well, you know, that
are going on the block.
That's where we need to have good relationships with the county folks,
100%.
so we can make this happen. Because
I want to see the schools being used. I really do.
Here's what we see. If we invite, and this is I think a misconception that a lot of people have. If I invite Dunkin' Donuts to come to town, or if I invite, you know, some new sub shop, or if I invite an a sporting goods place to come to town. We want to say that we're bringing a couple jobs, we're bringing these businesses, but we're really not. Because what's going to happen is the same number of people have to shop at now it's just one extra place.
Mm-hmm.
So if we bring a sporting goods place here, somebody in town has to not sell sporting goods equipment so this guy can survive. Somebody has to not sell coffee so Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks or Chick-fil-A, whoever, can survive here. So bringing business to town without bringing new residents to town doesn't actually help. And we can invite an industry to town. We can invite somebody who manufactures semiconductors or whatever. And even if they built a facility here that employs 100 people, that's only 100 jobs in a county that has 45,000 people. So
probably 55, I think.
55, whatever.
But
So,
that's not showing on the books, but I'm estimating 55.
so what we look at is you bring that awesome school here. And we looked around the state. You know, Winterville was a town that was only 3,000 people just a few years ago. Now they're a town of 13,000. Clayton was only a town of like 8,000 people. Now they're a town of 30,000. What is it that was happening in these communities that suddenly the population was growing? And when you go to those places, they're getting filled with people who have, you know, Washington, the average household, I think, has like a $40,000 annual income. People in those communities have six-figure incomes. So what's happening in Winterville? What's happening in Clayton? And what's happening is you have a big urban center like Raleigh, and people want to work in Raleigh, but they don't want to live in Raleigh. So they start flooding into the Clayton, into the Apex, into the Fuquay, into the Knightdale. We have that right here in our backyard. Greenville's growing by 10,000 people a year.
Yeah.
And right now, those people are choosing to live in Winterville, or they're choosing Grimesland's the next one. And here we have, right here in Washington, waterfront community. Cost of living is inexpensive, and we're getting none of that growth.
We're getting some. We're getting a little bit.
Minimal amount.
But I can tell you this, they're going to be wanting to live on the west side of Washington, north side of Washington, maybe in Washington, maybe even a little bit east of Washington, but not too much further east. And then Chocowindy is going to be a great beneficiary of the growth, because Grimesland's so close to Chocowindy. It's not a very long drive. It's about 3 miles shorter on the south side of the river.
Well, all those folks who are moving into Greenville, they're going to pull up Greenville and say, I could live right here in Greenville, or I can drive 20 minutes down the road and I could live on the waterfront community, Chocowindy or Washington. And the first thing they're going to do is say, let me check out how the school system looks, and we're not going to rank that great.
That's right.
But if we have
we'd like to.
We have this world-class school here, and then the next thing that follows a world-class school is developers, right? The developers are going to say, I want to build communities in Washington because they want to make money.
And I'm going to say something right now that's going to fly in the face of what a lot of advocates of public schools believe. I think bringing in a private school to this area, selling them a public school, pennies on the dollar, that would have gone fallow or torn down, they can renovate it and make something nice out of it and help the community in that respect. But I think it will help the public schools because of the competition.
Oh,
I think sure. in North Carolina for centuries, one plus century at least, we've had a public school monopoly, and that's a government monopoly. It's kind of like what we have in the medical industry. The government monopolizes it and allows certain things to happen, and that creates a monopolistic environment. And we've had that in the education industry here in North Carolina, and we've needed competition. Thank God the General Assembly has started school choice.
And with school choice, you mentioned it earlier, the school that you're looking at bringing in, it's going to be covered by the state. So it makes it affordable to every citizen of Washington or the county, because you're not having to pay something that everybody couldn't afford. It really makes that open up education opportunities for everyone. Private schools, not just for those who can afford it anymore. It's available for anybody who wants the better education, who wants the different type of education, as you mentioned, something that's going to focus on
however,
classics,
I think they can pick who they want.
Like they can pick and choose where they want to go, but cost isn't a factor as much at that point in time anymore.
If the kid is competent and qualified to be accepted, he can go there. I mean, you can't, and I can exclude him because of the color of his skin or whatever ethnicity or religion he might be affiliated with or she affiliated with. That's great. But that's why it creates competition.
That's right.
Because the mom and dad are going to say, listen, we're poor, honey, and we want you to have a better life, and you've got to be smarter in a competitive sense than all of your peers.
It also provides an educated workforce that can stay in the county and bring in additional opportunity because we have folks who have that level of education and experience further down the road that will attract those business opportunities.
When children start competing with each other, then that's going to force the teachers to teach. And they're going to teach well. And that's going to force the parents, once they see the benefit in it, to become better parents. I mean, it's a win-win.
I heard a statistic, I don't know if this is true, but I heard that 1 in 5 kids in Beaufort County are homeschooled.
That's a lot, man. We've lost a lot of students, and I have a lot of kids in my family that are homeschooled. I only have one of my grandchildren going to public school.
We've been losing about 100 students a year for whatever reasons, going to homeschool, going to private school, whatever, moving out of the county. But the public school system's been losing about 100 students a year for at least a decade now. Well, and that's a key piece of it. But the homeschooling, I know several folks in the past year alone, 3 or 4 or 5 children that have been pulled out of the public school system in the past 6 months for issues they had with the schools, and now they're homeschooled. So it is to some extent pandemic.
Let me give you a statistic. Back when we had about 290 employees in Beaufort County, and we were lean, I think we're second, third in the state in efficiency per capita ratio, amount of money, the amount of employees we had to the size of our county. We were very, very efficient, and we didn't have economy of scale either, and we were still very efficient. Now we're up in that 440, 450 range. One of our biggest expenses is public schools. Mm-hmm. Now, when I was a commissioner back in the 1990s, there were 7,300 kids going to schools. What is it now? 5,500?
Right around there, if I remember correctly. 5,500
kids. So that's a big drop in percentage values. 7,200, 7,300 to 5,500. And what you'll probably get at some of these private schools is you'll have homeschoolers going to private school.
Well, that's what I think that, I don't know that we'll pull so many kids from public school, but I think when you say there's a third less kids going to public school than just a generation ago, we definitely see parents want some alternatives. They want some differences. And this private school, the great thing about this private school, we spent $100 million on the Board of Education. That's their budget for education in Beaufort County.
And then the county spends even more on the buildings. I mean, we build all the buildings. The building for free that we have cost the taxpayers $10.5 million. That's real money. So it wasn't for free, gang.
Well, that's sort of the point. If we wanted to do more in education publicly, it costs us millions and millions and millions of dollars. The great thing about this is you're talking about private investors putting their own money up to put a product out to entice us in.
Use a school that would have become rubble.
I love private versus public because when it's public, you don't have choice. When it's private, look, if this private school doesn't do what they're supposed to do, people don't go there anymore. That's right. They disappear and blow away.
Have you learned the short tenure you've been on the city council that the public environment, the public industry, public business industry, or actually, I think I'm saying that wrong, the governmental industry versus the private sector is a big difference.
Oh, for sure.
Did it scare you a little bit?
It's just
to bother you a little bit.
If you read history and you pay attention, man, you understand the 2 levels of government, right? There's the elected, us elected. We take all the heat, right? Yeah. Whatever's going wrong is the county commissioner, the city council. We make none of the money and have very few of the decisions. The bureaucracy is this gigantic entity, this,
feeds on itself.
Megalith that
it supports itself.
Right.
Bureaucracy begets more bureaucracy.
When we started meeting
little children,
department heads. One of the guys told me with a straight face, he said, "You guys come and go. We're going to be here long after you're gone."
Maybe not. I don't know Nick Fritz.
That's right, man. So that's all on the councilman. We're just excited because we're going to do this stuff, man. We're going to get this school in here. We're going to invite these developers, but they're going to want to come because once that school's here, they're going to know Greenville's growing by 10,000 people a year. That's the entire city of Washington every year being added to Greenville. If we only get 10% of that, if 1,000 people move to this area, suddenly Washington's growing by 10% a year.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's just scraping off a little bit of that.
Well, yeah, but again, they won't all go to Washington, but they will go, I mean, using your numbers, they will go close to Washington. They will use Washington services, and it will be a beautiful thing. Think about it from a geographical standpoint. Is there a prettier county in this area than Beaufort County?
Oh, man, we've got the water, we've got the nature.
We have more waterfront due to our two big rivers and lots of creeks. We have creeks a mile wide at the mouth, and we have more waterfront in this county than any other county in the state of North Carolina. A lot of people don't realize that. It's not oceanfront, but it's waterfront.
And as you talked about bringing folks in, people might not have picked up on it. It was my perception or just my opinion. What I like when you were talking about economic development, we're not looking to bring in outside businesses to compete with what's already here. And we do have a lot of mom and pop folks in Beaufort County still, a lot of, small business owners. That's a great thing about the community is we want to keep those folks here to where they can earn a living. They can stay here. They can afford to live here. We're not looking to bring somebody else in that can undercut you and put the local businesses that have been here for years out of business. And I think that's a great thing that you pointed out.
Exactly the opposite, right? If we have a neighborhood with 400 homes that's developed in this area, that's 400 homes, we'll call that 1,200 people. That's 1,200 more people shopping at the local places.
That's right.
And when we want to do development in the city right now, like you talked about, if the government wants to develop downtown, we got to take money out of your pocket and give it to this guy. And we're basically begging him, hey man, open up a shop downtown. When thousands of people are moving to the community, now downtown is just busy and business comes to us saying, I want to open up downtown. Commerce chases population. We focus on the population, the commerce will come in. And the people who are buying those homes, we just said a minute ago, those are the 6-figure a year income houses. The bigger businesses, the drone development, all those people, when they start looking around, why would they come to Beaufort County today? And the answer is that they just wouldn't. There's not a lot here that's going to say, if I'm...
Used to, we had a really good tax rate.
That's right.
we got problems at the county level. We've had enough growth in this county, we could have cut taxes a number of times. And the city went up 28%. We could have cut at least 15% over the last number of years because we have had an increase in our tax base. But we haven't done it because they can always find ways to spend more money, hire more employees. And you'd be surprised. We got to take care of this employee because this has happened to them, or this employee, that employee. Eventually, you're just babysitting employees. And there are people, you'll find them. You probably already met a lot of them in Washington with a straight face who say, government is good for the economy. In other words, they consider government to be economic development. And for me, government is anti-economic development. In all respects, unless they bring in somebody to this area, and it only takes one few good words to bring somebody to this area. What you need is a good tax rate, good place for schools, a beautiful area, which we already have. And if we could get the schools better and get tax rate down, those two legs of the three-legged stool would take care of everything. You want to have a place where the boss wants to live.
Government employees are paid for out of taxpayer money.
Yeah,
and they are contributing $0 back into the economy.
So when they go out to eat,
other than what the taxpayers paid them. So I don't see that as economic development. Growing government isn't.
Somebody's got to pay the freight.
Being a good thing.
And the people that pay the freight are the people that look at their tax bill and they say, "What do I get for this?" Now I can tell them all the things they get for it, but I'm also going to say, "You pay too much. You pay too much for what you get." I'll be the first one to advocate. You need to get a rollback.
My brother used to joke about talking about savings with his wife, and he would say, I want to save $1,000, whatever. And that's his version of saving. And his wife would say, I went shopping today and bought all this stuff that was on sale, and I saved $1,000.
My mother used to do that.
Yeah.
That's the difference between
That's
government
right.
economic development and real
Yeah,
economic
yeah.
development, right?
That's right.
My mother should have been a liberal in government.
So Stan, I wanted to ask you, man, since
Sure.
we're chatting, you're up for an election this year, man.
Yeah, every 4 years.
So I was talking to some folks and asking them, what the heck does the county commission, what does the board of county commissioners actually do? And as a citizen of Beaufort County, who should we be looking at, man? I know we should be looking at Stan, but why should we be looking at Stan?
Well, let me explain a few things. First, we talked about the public schools. We spend a lot of money. We tax you, the public out there. And I think we spend about 13 million, 14 million on this public schools, and that's just to keep them running. And then we build all the schools, and we have to pay for those. So the more schools we build, the more we got to tax you, the public. So if we build schools we don't need, that's not a smart thing. When we have perfectly good schools that would work for a private school somewhere, but the public no longer owns that school, they sell it for pennies on the dollar. That's not smart either. But I do want private schools to come here, because I hate to see that piece of property just become vacant and rubble. And that costs a lot of money too to remove the building. So we want to be smart and wise about how we spend things. One of the things we do is solid waste. We do all the solid waste, and we need to start recycling again. Please, let's recycle. It's the way we can take the green initiative, the new green scam away from the leftists. They want to remake our country into a Marxist hellhole, and that's a way to do it. And we only have to do 4 things: recycle everything, keep plastic out of the ocean, recondition the soil, and grow stuff. And you'll take care of your environment, and you'll be a good steward of your area. So it would cost less than a penny from what they wanted to extract from you, the taxpaying public, at the federal level. It was a dumb idea. And, if we hear that again, I hope you will rise up and vote against these fools. But what else do we do? Well, we did have the hospital. We did have, at one time, we still have our talons in the hospital. They can't do anything without our remainder interest deciding what to do. We control all the buildings downtown, all the government buildings. So you give you your courthouse, some of your libraries, community college. We hold all the records. We build the jail. We have the sheriff. We spend about $9 million a year with the sheriff, and the sheriff, in all due respect, does most of the busting in this county. I mean, if it's drugs, we're generally getting them out of the county, and that's one of the things we got to do, because my opinion is narcotics is a great evil that changes families and the way we look at everything in this country. I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. Every time I see one of those narco ships go up in flames, it's like boom. It just elevates my day. So, that's my big world perspective. There's other things we do, too numerous to mention. One thing I'd like to stop doing is granting money out to this group and that group and the other group. We do about $1.5 million a year. And to me, it's a private sector thing. Sometimes these NGOs are just another way for us to help somebody out to further an ambition, and sometimes you don't know where all that money's going. I'd like to know where all the money's going. I really do. We see up in Minnesota they think there's $9 billion worth of fraud in just 1 year. And a lot of that went through NGOs, and the money was just flowing. All these small business loans were being made. And a lot of people from this state weren't getting them, but they were getting them up in Minnesota to people that weren't even citizens of this country, even without a balance sheet. So how can the federal government turn down somebody in Beaufort County and yet approve money for Somaliland? I don't understand that, but they did. They did. And those loans are probably never going to get paid back. Mm-hmm. So we've got to start at all levels of government. And social services. That's a big thing. We handle the social service, which handles all the payouts to a lot of people that are on the assistance systems. And I don't begrudge them for that. We need to keep doing that, but we need to give the money to the right people. Mm-hmm. Because so many times money goes to the wrong people, like illegals. Illegals get money out of our social services department. We feed them, we house them, we educate them. It's a net loss. If you think, well, this is something we should do. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, your biggest expense in Beaufort County is us taking care of illegals.
Well, let's talk about illegals, man, because that's an interesting thing. So some people are sympathetic to the illegal cause because they're human beings.
I am too. I am too. But think about it this way. Nations have laws. We are a nation of laws. I've heard leftists say that ad nauseum. We're a democracy. Why? How dare you destroy our democracy? And they say that with straight face after the 2020 election. 312,000 ballots in Fulton County still haven't been cured. And Fulton County is the home of Fannie Willis. Does any of this making sense to anybody? So, Trump won Georgia, it looks like to me. So how many other states did he win? Okay. And I'm going far afield here, but I'm just telling you, there is a hypocrisy out there right now, and it's scary. So we have to, as government people, we have to be leaders and rein in the hypocrisy. To me, I know what the Bible says, and I'm becoming a student of the Bible once again, and we need to take care of folks that are here. But it's impossible to take care of our own. How can we take care of the world? We can't. No country's ever done that before. Rome did it, and they did it by subjugating people, taking their resources, killing their people, bringing them into the Circus Maximus and what is it called? The Colosseum, where they destroyed them and killed them, and for fun and sport. Is that the kind of society we want? Turn them into slaves? Do you think the United States is the only country that's ever had slaves? Every country that's still going today has had slaves. And still, there's slaves in many places because of the pay they get. I mean, almost nothing, just enough to subsist. So I'm just saying it's a crazy big world. It's terrible. There's a lot of injustices in the world, and we can't fix them all. But we have to take care of our people first and foremost. And you said something today I really like. You play stupid games, you get stupid prizes.
That's right.
So, America, if we're going to be there for all the illegals in the world, and listen, if you come in this country, either you're flown in by the Biden administration or you're let through an open border that was sealed, but they were lying the whole time. I mean, we're talking about 15 million probably coming in through all the borders, being flown in, given spending cards and phones and places to stay, and which costs you probably $500 billion in 1 year, you the public. We can't keep doing that. We're going to go broke. And if we go broke, if we go away, if we become a nation that cannot defend itself anymore, I don't know what's going to happen to the rest of the world.
And I think when we look at immigration, I don't think that America itself is anti-immigration. We're a nation of immigrants.
Yes, we are.
I think it goes back to, like we said, we're a nation built on laws. There is a way that you can come here legally and be an American citizen. And I think everybody is pretty much in favor of that. I don't think you'd find many people who say we're not still in the business of bringing people in. I think it's the illegal, the breaking of the rule, the breaking of the law, and for whatever reason, those folks are allowed to do it, or they're, whether it was Biden administration, whether it's just folks coming looking for a better opportunity. I think that it's the illegal action of coming and staying that's the issue. And then
that's why
if the government,
you have to get the nomenclature right.
Right. So if you've already broken a law, you're a criminal. And the idea is if you're here illegally and you're getting government benefits, which goes back to government oversight, whether it's a bureaucratic class, whether it's the elected officials, if we are not providing that oversight, that's the issue. And there's all kinds of arguments you can say, whether it's, folks out working in the fields, the migrant workers that are in agriculture, or if it's people out digging ditches or painting houses, whatever they're doing, a lot of those jobs we look at and say, well, that's the illegals. You drive down the road, there might be 5-6 guys sitting at the gas station, you pick them up and you take them to do a job.
But you know something? Here's the thing.
But they're willing to work.
They're willing to work. And you could do that legally.
Right.
Bring in just the workers. Leave the families back where they are. Okay? Then we don't have to spend all that money to educate the children, give them welfare. They're not going to get welfare if they don't have children here.
And
And they're there to work. They can send the money back home. I don't care what they do with the money. But what kills us is when the families come in. And you remember that's what the Biden people want. They had kids showing up at the border, 7, 8 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old, with just a note saying what address they would be sent to. And then they would take them and send that address. And some of those children got lost.
and
Some of them hadn't been, a lot of them, about 3/4 of them hadn't been found yet.
And I think that's the issues when we're looking at folks who are coming in, receiving benefits that American citizens, if they have a need, now we're having to divide how do we provide our assistance programs to our own citizens who qualify.
Yeah.
And then we're going to give those to people who are illegally a criminal. That's where a lot of that issue comes from.
Oh, there's a lot of criminality.
In my opinion.
In the terms of hundreds of thousands of dollars per criminal illegal, they're making money off the system. And we're going to be paying for it. Your children are going to be paying for it for centuries. Who knows?
And unfortunately, and it goes back to, why the folks are coming here to do the work. Well, a lot of the folks are coming and they're doing work that Americans won't do. And if you have a group of folks in America who aren't willing to work, but you have folks who are, there's the difference. We can't export citizens. We're not in the business of deporting citizens. But when you have a set of folks who are willing to come legally, if they follow the rules and they come, that benefits everybody because now they're here working, they're paying taxes, and then that works like any other U.S. citizen. But there's a way that you do it right, and there's a way that you do it wrong. And I think that's what has to
We're
be
so
solved.
out of whack in this nation. We've lost our way as to what constitutes a good citizen. Right now, standing out in the street and yelling and screaming and protesting, and I'm using my First Amendment rights to burn this dumpster up, and I'm going to throw rocks and bricks and ram cars, and that's my First Amendment right. Well, guess what? It ain't. It's not.
You don't have the right to break the law.
You don't have the right to break the law.
That's the difference.
And we were talking this morning, in particular, about some poor guy who's probably a good citizen in some respects, but he doesn't have the good judgment not to go to a stressful situation where there's lots of well-armed federal agents with body armor, and he takes a gun to the streets. I mean, my wife said, well, what if I had a firearm and we were walking down Stewart Parkway? I said, well, listen, okay, let me say it this way. If I saw a riot out in the streets, burning, tear gas canisters going off, you and that gun in your pocketbook would be gone. We're going home, and we're gonna clatter things in, and I'm gonna make sure I got my guns and my ammunition. I'll defend my domicile. But you keep your guns in a defensive position. Am I right?
That's correct.
And if you're gonna go offensive with guns, you better have a plan.
The Second Amendment provided for folks to maintain their own firearms. And people forget, when the United States was founded, we didn't have representation. That was an argument. We had tax issues that we argued against. And when we didn't feel that we got the relief that we wanted by the king or the British government, we were still trying to do it the right way.
Mm-hmm.
But when they came for the guns,
Mm-hmm.
the one way that we had to actually defend ourselves and what we saw as our own rights, that's when they picked up weapons and shot back at the authorities. But in the Constitution, in order in a free country that we wanted to be without tyrants or anything else, they provided that Second Amendment where we had the right to retain firearms for our own defense and the militia to defend the nation. Because at that point in time, you still have to remember we were a frontier nation. We still had other, what would have been considered superpowers back then that could still come and threaten us. So that was put there for a reason. We have the right to defend ourselves. We have the right to own those firearms, in my opinion, for that very reason. What we don't have the right to do is take a firearm and go get in, essentially, whether you want to call it an argument, a dispute with law enforcement that are doing the right thing, they're enforcing the law, and then you want to involve yourself in that. And especially if you're carrying a weapon, that's a bad idea.
You don't need
that's why we have law enforcement. Law enforcement is here to enforce laws. They are armed because sometimes they have to defend themselves. That's why they're armed. Law enforcement is armed to defend themselves and other people.
Well, that's when you become a one-man militia, and that's kind of dumb. It really is. I don't care if you were a nurse or you maybe a well-intentioned paid agitator. You don't need to be ramming running your car away from law enforcement, hitting somebody, you might get shot. And if you got a gun on you, you're not supposed to have a gun at the street. We don't know what happened, but do know this. You don't have a gun when you're out at a protest. Excuse me. They call it a protest, a mostly peaceful protest. It's a riot. What they've got going on in Minneapolis is a riot. When you come in between a federal agent who's trying to do his job and you're throwing stuff at them, hitting them, beating them, yelling at them, and they've got guns, and you're keeping them from doing their job, and they're not shooting you, you're fortunate. You got a gun on you, the chances go down real fast about surviving.
Well, I think there's some misconception with a lot of that stuff as well. If you are a police officer, there is a much higher likelihood you will be shot by somebody than that you will shoot somebody, and they're trained that way. You know, if somebody approaches you with a gun and you're in law enforcement, you better believe there's a high likelihood they're going to shoot you.
Well,
you're trained to defend yourself.
I was to that point. I was coming home from Raleigh late at night. It's probably about 11. We did one-day trips up there a lot for Lynn and her mother, who's still living up there. And I saw a highway patrolman pull a car. I said, honey, right now in America, this is probably the most dangerous it's ever been for a highway patrolman at 11 o'clock at night. With all the illegals you got on the road right now, don't have a license, probably broke the law, and they got a gun. And they have proved they will shoot. And there are a lot of criminal illegals right now in this country right now. They're not here. They're mostly peaceful. Yeah, most of them are. Most of them are. They're good people. They need to be in another country unless they're a citizen, but they're good people. But a lot of them are criminals. A lot of criminals. And that guy's got to feel every time he goes to that glass and say, do you have a gun? Yeah, keep your hands on the wheel, whatever. And they don't do what they're told to do. He's got to be thinking, I don't know, am I going to have to pull my weapon out? Am I going to have to discharge it? Now what do I do? And then he starts probably thinking, well, am I brave enough to handle this? And then the training starts kicking in. Mm-hmm. And they're going to be brave. And then that training kicks in, and that's when these guys could die.
And to tie this back to really how that impacts Washington and Beaufort County as a whole, I think it goes back to what both of you do in your respective positions, and that's provide leadership and then oversight. And that oversight, I think, is the important piece, whether we're looking at how the money is spent, where those dollars are going. Are they going to the right folks, or is there fraud potentially within our system? And that's what the bureaucratic class is not doing it. And, whether you like bureaucracy or not, it really is its own living beast. It exists to grow further. In my experience with U.S. government and with the military, it's the same thing. Every year it has to get bigger. It has to justify what it did last year so that it gets at least the same amount as it did the year before. And then you come up with these, I always said they were called good idea fairies. Hey, why don't we do this? Oh, that's a great idea. We'll give you an extra, $10 million for it. But they're there because they want to perpetuate their own.
Yes.
It's job security for them, but they're not providing that oversight. That's the elected officials. You have the ability to look at the budget, to question the budget, you are the boss of the bureaucracy. Yeah. You have the ability to tell them this is how we expect things to be done to some extent. And you can correct me where I'm wrong, please.
I'm going to speak to that, and I'm going to ask Nick what he's learned so far. What I've learned being in a minority as a conservative on the Board of County Commissioners, even though we have five Republicans, two of them now are so-called. We actually have three conservatives on the Board of Commissioners. Having said that to the public, I've also been told one man's fraud, not like this, as I'm putting in my words, one man's fraud is another man's different policy. And I served with county commissioners who were Democrats, become Republicans to get elected. Then once they're elected, they become Democrats again. And generally they tend to work with the other Democrats very well. I call them Democratic Socialists, which these guys are a lot different than your grandfather's Democrats. So the so-called Republicans become very liberal, not moderates. They become liberal, more liberal than moderates in the past. there were a lot of Democrats in the past that would be moderate, and I've served with them before. They're not anymore. So we call them rhinos. They make policy decisions all the time. Some of it, you wonder why they're doing it. What's in it for them? The decisions are that bad. So to me, that's kind of a fraud. First of all, I think they're frauds. So they're spending your money in a fraudulent manner, in my respect, because that money could be better placed in other places, like back in your pockets, by not charging you so much taxes. But if you vote for the wrong people, this is what you're going to get. And we've had that in Beaufort County for many decades. Don't vote for a rhino, please. So you speak to what you're seeing. Is it bad policy or is it fraud?
I've been real hesitant to say fraud for that exact reason. I may be naive, but I believe most people get involved in government, at least initially, to do what they perceive as good, right? I'm conservative. So my perception of good is leave as much of your money in your pocket as possible and let your neighbors do as much as what they want to do as possible.
About 30 years ago, I used to feel the same way you did.
Well, socialists have a different perspective. The socialist perspective, the left liberal perspective is if there's this pot of money that this guy has, and then there's these poor folks, it doesn't make sense to let this guy just keep all his money while we have people starving in the street. So they get involved with government with the perception, the idea, I'm going to take some of this guy's money. He doesn't need it. He's loaded, and I'm going to help people out.
He can work hard and make more.
So now we would say that's just stealing.
Yeah.
Now,
It is, in my opinion.
I do think it's a totally different perspective, and I think left and right exist, in people's minds, and they do not mesh. There's no such thing as
there's no working across the
conservative liberal, right? If they are willing to take from those who have to give to those who don't,
without any oversight.
Well, and that's where I think the problem comes in, because it is the oversight, and the oversight is, so now when everybody gets elected every 2 or 4 years, we all come in and everybody has some agenda that they want to push. And if you're left, it's what can the government do for you? And if it's right, it's how can I peel this onion back a little bit, which is almost impossible in 2 years.
Which is what our forefathers intended this nation to be.
My personal perspective with it is, if every single person were only limited to one term, there's no such thing as the second term. That means every decision you make is not going to be based on, will I get reelected?
I got a problem with that. And let me tell you why. Not everybody's as wise and smart as you are going in. A lot of people have to learn, and they have to be trained, and they have to train themselves to do the work and do the job well. Because I can tell you, if you depend on the bureaucrats to train you, they're going to train you to support the bureaucrats, because bureaucracy begets bureaucracy. That's just the way it works. I like to call it the bureaucratic class, fourth separate branch of government.
They're the largest branch of government. I think that's the most difficult thing to grasp coming into the thing from the outside, or looking in from the outside. When I look and say, what is Stan or Hood doing, or what are those city councilmen doing, and I want to be upset, why haven't they done this and why haven't they done that? It's really difficult for people to grasp right away that there's 400 people working in the county and 300 people working in the city.
4 by 440.
That's 700 people.
We got some part-time people too
in this little county, and they're making the bulk of the $140 million of government expenditure going on. Those people want no change.
No.
They
want more change, but they want change upwards for bureaucracy.
The average person on the government payroll makes 50% more in salaries and benefits than the average citizen who is paying for the government.
It's gotten that way. It wasn't that way in the early going, but we've had managers that do these fake job studies, and that's where a lot of us come in. And that's it's a teetering animal that's going to probably get carved up if we get the right people in government.
I hope. I mean, it's difficult. It's difficult to say, and then there's several people inside the city of Washington making over $100,000 a year. That's great, but they're being paid for by the average citizens making like $19,000 a year.
I want to say one thing, and I think this is really good. I don't know. I think the manager is getting close to that, maybe a little bit more, but that's pretty good for a manager.
And the
that you
city of
guys
Washington.
hired. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
you
yeah,
guys
yeah,
did
yeah.
good,
Well, you know.
and he probably loves the job. I mean, he can do it in his sleep. So
Oh, he was the right guy for the job for this
yeah,
area for
I
sure,
told you.
man. I don't know what other city manager we could have appointed at 10 in the morning and
Yeah,
was at work at noon that day and stayed working until 8 o'clock
yeah,
getting after it.
that's a good thing.
That's pretty good,
Yeah,
man.
he knows where all the bodies are buried. Talking about
Mhm.
Bobby Robertson, he knows where all the
Mhm.
bodies are buried, and that's a good thing.
Yeah. Well, he's getting after it right away, man.
He won't be putting anybody over here and over there. He'll go dig them up, find
Well,
out
and,
where things are.
he knew on the way in if we wanted to shave, $1.8 million off of this budget,
Hmm.
we got to get after it. If we're not even allowed to have a non-balanced budget, so
No,
there's no such thing as we're just going to shave it off and borrow some money or something.
mm-mm.
We have to cuts actually have to be made, but it's
And you're going to have to probably at some point add a little bit more to your fund balance.
well, and that's where I was talking about. If you're only here for one term, long-term decisions versus short-term decisions, right? It'd be great to say, look at all these sidewalks we built or splash pads or little trinkets that we can offer to the community to show off this is what your council's
Mhm.
doing. But those aren't real.
Mm-mm.
What's long-term is, are we getting schools coming to town? Are we getting neighborhoods built? Are we doing things that make businesses and industry want to move?
I'm going to tell you something. If you guys are doing all the right things, people are going to want to keep you in office. They really will, and I think that's what's helped me a lot stay in office is I've tried to do well. I've tried to do the right thing. I've tried to be honest and forthright with the public and with my fellow commissioners, and oversight. I practice it. They don't. Most of them don't. Hood Richardson, might not like the guy, but he is a stallion when it comes to oversight. And it's very, very important that we keep an eye on everything going on. Oversight is so important just to watch these guys. And so, well, we can cut here, we can cut here, we can cut here. You're just going to have to do it. It's tough.
I think county commissioners, especially, there was a time where, we have three guys on. Like I said, we have a majority. But I didn't know that going in. I didn't know if maybe I'd be the only one.
The Republican Party stayed out of it. You might have had a full-member majority. I couldn't believe the election results. It was very. You had some close folks there.
Yeah.
And a ringer taking away about 300 votes.
Yeah, that stinks.
That would have helped you. A four-member majority would have been sweet.
But you, as somebody who doesn't have a majority, I wondered, if you're elected and you're not the majority,
Yeah.
if you can't get all these long-term things done, is there still a point?
Yeah. What can you do?
To sit in there?
Well, see, from that, two things. Number one, you contrast yourself against the other guys. Number two, you're that guy in the back room fixing stuff that they break.
Mm-hmm.
They break a lot of stuff. Leftists aren't good at doing stuff, okay? They generally work for somebody else their whole life. They don't understand how the private sector works. And you got to fix things all the time. You know that.
Mm-hmm.
Number three, very important, you get to do the oversight. It's an open meeting. Our meetings are filmed. They've been filmed ever since Hood and I got them filmed back about 3 decades ago. And we started pulling money out of our own pocket to get that because they wanted to operate in the dark. And the city was doing that too. They've only been filming for about 15 years now, I think. I don't know, I may be wrong, but we've been doing a lot longer than they have because Hood and I took that initiative many years ago back in the 1990s. But it's important for the public to know what their governments are doing for them and to them. So at least you get to be there and perform that oversight because that puts them out front. And let me tell you about what we have in Beaufort County. The center-left coalition is what I call them. Those that swap votes to share power. We have 2 rhinos and Frankie Waters and Randy Walker, and then we have 2 Democratic Socialists. Okay, I'm not going to mention their names, but they work very well together, and they hate it when you perform oversight. It makes them mad. It's kind of like what's going on in Minnesota. They hate the federal government's coming in there, but they're swooping in right now. I think I heard this said one time by Mr. Obama's pastor. The chickens are coming home to roost. But we're having a great discussion. You got some stuff written on your pad. Did you talk about everything you want to talk about?
I think I'll get to that and say. I think from the minority perspective, when you're on that council, I equated government like getting on to the city council. Government's almost like, because it's a bureaucracy, right? It's almost
It's a bureaucracy because my fellow commissioners let it become a bureaucracy.
it's like looking in a really dirty window at a factory of tons of stuff going on, and when you're not allowed to get in because you're the minority, so you can't control any of it. The very best thing you can do is squeegee off some of the dirt, look inside, and tell everybody this is what's going on, if y'all care to know.
And try to help the public understand why they need to become involved so they know what's going on, so they at least know who to vote for and maybe why. At least so that when they go to the polls, they feel like, well, I made a good decision. And then if you find that your guys, like you guys, I'm really admiring you, Max, and Joe, doing what you're doing.
Thank
you. You guys are my heroes right now. And then I want to be a hero unto myself after 7 terms. This will be my 8th term if I get elected. Then maybe I can be a hero too if we get the majority. One person can make the biggest difference. And I wish it hadn't gone the way it went. These guys get elected. They say they're going to be conservative, and they even tell you when they're running for office they're conservative, but they're just lying.
Hold signs up too.
Hold signs up. Yeah. Oh, look at me. I'm a conservative. And if you got to tell people you're a conservative, you're probably not a conservative. Because then if you're smart and these guys say that, ask them why. What are they doing that's conservative?
Ask them what they've done.
Ask them what they've done, yeah. And make them explain it. Make them explain themselves, because it's a very different thing to do rather than to seem.
Well, you had mentioned at some point, I heard a couple of things. One, the county's sitting on this big old pile of money.
It was about $38 million at one time.
And now, you never voted for a tax increase. No, it's comical that you'd even have to say that, right? We're sitting on a giant pile of money, and I had to tell them, no, we're not going to take more.
And lately we've been saying we'd like to give some back because we have police power, just like you have police power, and you can always raise taxes if you need it. But see, what they do is they want to manage the money flow coming in, going out, so the people won't get angry. They keep them like cattle, kind of do what you're told and eat over here. Now you eat over here and don't eat too much here, and keep giving us the milk. Okay. And, basically, or the meat. Some people have to give the meat, which is even worse. But the thing is, that kind of perception of government creates a larger perception that you're going to have a bigger government. If you take money away from the government, then the government has to subsist on what it's got. And then they'll have to make some hard choices. And even your bureaucrats will start acting better. They'll do a better job if there's less money. If there's more money, they're trying to figure out how I can get my hands on it.
And they have to justify spending it so they can get more. That's been my experience.
And really, the sad part about it is some of the guys up there really need those bureaucrats to tell them what to do. Otherwise, they don't know. And I hate to say this, I've been an advocate of North Carolina Association of County Commissioners. But even now, I'm finding that they're training commissioners on how to act and how to think. And you're probably going to see it. What's your group? I forget. It's
League of Municipalities.
League of Municipalities. Yeah, they're going to probably try to train you on how to act and how to think. They're going to probably say your number one investment in your county are your employees.
Well, that's a funny thing to say, right?
Well, maybe they'll say your number one asset. You're going to say, no, my number one asset's my constituents.
Well, it's all funny, right? The government works for the people.
Yes.
So when we're elected, you would think we are that sort of go-between. We are representing the people, looking in on the government who is hired to do a job. Now, I always try to simplify it down to the most basic level. If we hired somebody to mow the lawn, and now we have to go check and see, are they doing a good job mowing the lawn? And they start telling us, this is how we're going to do it. This is what we need. And you need some of that. But at some point, when these guys are telling us everything and we're telling them nothing, things aren't going quite right. No. These folks were hired to do a specific job, and it's up to us to say the citizens are happy or unhappy, or we want you to go a little left or a little right. And when the government, the elected officials, aren't giving instructions to the bureaucracy, then we are failing.
Yes.
The bureaucracy can't tell us to go tell the citizens, this is what we're doing for y'all. That's not how it works. We hire you guys to perform these services.
It's remarkable to me that you and Joe and Max are proactive. And I think it's great. I mean, you're acting like a real majority should act. Are you seeing other members of your council and some of the bureaucratic staff getting it and understanding when to become part of the program, or are they fighting you a little bit?
The mayor's been really good.
Good.
She's she's young, proactive. She has her own visions, and the mayors don't have a vote on the city council. So recognizing that for her to achieve her vision, she has to basically communicate and sell it and be on board. And she's been really
Not
good.
being total conflict with your vision.
Right. And there's a certain amount of conflict, right? And you're going to have that. The three of us aren't agree on everything.
No.
So somehow you got to pick the stuff
Figure a way to work together.
to accomplish. The other two guys who are up there, they've paid a certain amount of lip service to wanting to get stuff done, but frankly, they do not. I ask the open-ended question: what do you want to accomplish in the next 2 years, 4 years, 20 years? And I don't have a straight answer. I think the other two guys' position is opposition. I think that's their main thing. Now, the city staff, on the other hand, I think they were real nervous with guys coming in talking about change. But I think they've been pretty receptive to change as well. I've taken over businesses before, and anytime you get new bosses coming in, it causes stress and anxiety. Most folks want to do a good job.
Yeah.
And if you've been getting paid and you have not learned what a good job actually means, I think that causes you stress because you never know, should I get fired today?
Well, there's going to be some folks that I've noticed them in the county, on the county level, even though we've increased our roles. There's some employees that think we've hired too many people, and they'll tell me, this person's not doing their job. This is not doing a job. Why do we have this one stand? And, there's some that work a lot harder than others, and they want everybody to experience government the way they do, to be in it for the public, to work hard, be remunerated at a fair rate. And the other guys need to just go away. And we don't need all the people. We don't need to fill every office. I don't know why we have all the offices, to be honest with you.
So one of the things, how do you cut the government? How do you get everybody on board to cut? One of the ideas that we're floating around is every department head has to submit their budget, right, to us. And we have an idea that we're going to give 5% of actual cut expenditures back to the department head as a bonus.
And that's not that much because it's just the little bit they're able to save.
Just with it, well, maybe if you can save $100,000, that's a $5,000 bonus that gets cut back to you. And now look, that money exists, and you've been around it. Some people don't.
It's not a bad idea.
Some people don't know this, but
it has to be a wise expenditure, though.
We've talked to some department heads who say at the end of the year we had an extra couple $100,000 that we hadn't spent on our budget.
Mm-hmm.
So we said, hey, we want a new truck for the office, or we want new this, and they figured out a way how to spend all that extra money. Now they called it their savings. They didn't need it. They just said, well, we have this extra budgeted money. Rather than give it back, let's get something that the office has wanted for a while. And they spend that money. Now, I think they have to get approval to get it, but their mindset
They should have to get your approval.
Their mindset is, if there's extra money here, let's spend it. Let's switch that around. If there's extra money here, take a little bonus because you're finding ways to help the taxpayer spend the money.
This is one of the things you can work with a manager on. And every manager should do this, but on every budget, there's a certain amount of money you spend per department, but it is for specific items. Once you go beyond those specific items or cut some specific items, and you still have that money, you still got to go before the ruling body, and the people the public elect, to make that decision. Then you can decide whether you will make the cut or not. I mean, more often than not, I will make that cut if I think I had the majority. They would be driving older cars in Beaufort County. I can tell you that right now if I had my way.
Absolutely. But that not everything comes before the council. If each of us has a department and has expenditure and has oversight, if we all start getting in the mindset, I want to find ways to save the taxpayer dollars, not because we're good citizens, which is nice, because you're going to be personally rewarded. Right now, the government is backwards. If you're running a department, you get more goods and you get more presents
Mm-hmm.
by not giving back to the taxpayer. Let's flip the script.
But
Man.
if you do it at budget, they have right there before budget, they can come in and say, we're going to ask for less this year, and this is why. That's when you reward them.
Mm-hmm.
And when they say, well, we actually do need the money, then you say, sorry, not this year. And you'll have to know what things you can ride on to the next year.
Well, and that's where, I want those guys on our same page. I equate it to the brain surgeon thing, right? If I was told I had a brain tumor and I walk in and this surgeon says you need this kind of surgery, and this surgeon says no, you don't, you need that kind of surgery, I don't know who to trust, right? When I walk into these government departments, theoretically, the head of every department is a specialist. They're paid to know their department better than I do.
Mm-hmm.
So when they say I need A, B, C, and D, we want to trust them. And we have, to some extent, we have to trust them by giving them some incentive to say, man, I'm not going to ask for all this stuff under the sun. I want to ask for the least amount of stuff.
There you go.
Because that's how I'm going to be first.
But you want to guard against them getting their little bonus, and then the next year they come and say, well, I really did need that.
Well,
I think
At that point, what do you do? Take away 5%?
I think some of it comes back to strategic planning. Is there even a short-term, 2-year, 4-year plan? What is it? Where are we looking to go? And how do we need to budget to get there? And at least as far as the school system is concerned, they don't have one.
No, they don't.
So how do we know that we need a new school or that we need, to change bus routes or any of that?
Closing Snowden was
if you never had a study or had a
strategic
strategic plan, period.
No.
So I think that's a part of it. You can come in as the elected leadership. Here's our vision. Here's the plan we want to accomplish. You, the bureaucratic class that are the experts, you show us how we get there and make it work. And then we're going to provide that oversight to make sure it gets accomplished and it gets done within the parameters that we set. And I think that's, one of the things that we don't see all the time in government. Whether, it's, we have this idea, but we don't have the roadmap to get there.
Yeah, you want the roadmap, but you want it to be a negotiated roadmap that's plausible.
And it's difficult when you don't have either the majority on the board, or when you have differing viewpoints or whatever the case may be. So it's certainly not easy, but there should be a way to look at, we know there's certain things, whether it's we wanted to put broadband everywhere or county water, there's certain things that we know, here's an end goal, and we need to have the timeline, the budget, and the oversight to make sure it's done right. And then the bureaucracy or the worker bees, they can go out there and get it done, but they know that they're, we had a saying in my Air Force intelligence unit, in God we trust, all others we monitor. There it is. Here's what we want, get it done, but Big Brother's gonna look over your shoulder to make sure you're doing it right and within budget.
That's almost as good as you play stupid games, you get stupid prizes.
Well, I think that one of the main things we're trying to do here is change the nature of government, which is difficult, right? It's almost impossible, but the idea that everybody wants to spend as much as possible. And when you meet the department head, if it's a fire guy, the fire marshal, he wants the new truck, or the policeman wants the new cars, or everybody, and I still believe want to do good. They want the most for their departments. And, it's like I tell my wife when she says she wants a bunch of new shoes. It's not that they can't have the shoes, you just can't have them right now. We can teach the folks in government to stretch their time frame out. You can't have everything this year. Change that perspective. We spend a little bit slower.
And you make things work longer.
It's not your money.
That's right.
It's easy to spend other people's money.
It is so easy. And in fact, there's a job description there on how to do that. I think we're running long on time. We've had a good time.
Yep.
Is there anything anybody wants to bring up?
I think it's been a great discussion, and I say let's do this again.
Bring Max and Joe.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
We sit us all around the table.
Yeah. You'll enjoy when we get these guys around the table.
Oh, yeah, no, great. Appreciate you coming today.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
Well, thanks for joining us today. We got Mayor Pro Tem Nicholas Fritz here with us, and he's done a great job showing us and telling us what's what's best for the city of Washington and helping me think about what's best for County of Beaufort.
Man, I look forward to working with you, Stan.
I look forward to working with you, my friend. Give every greater value in what you do and what you attain to help the people, and that'll make everything beautiful. Down East Dave, your wisdom is always warranted. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us, and thank you for joining us. Signing out. See you next time.